Hello, thank you for joining. My name is Will. I'll present a project that my company, Inspired Intellect, initiated internally. We wanted to do something after the initial stay-at-home orders last winter. We work in many different industries. We have several healthcare industry specific clients. And while speaking with them, the pandemic was an emergency for their business. And obviously it was a global emergency for all of us. I realize that many in the audience may be experiencing COVID fatigue. I am as well. But we took on this initiative in the winter for several reasons. One, we wanted to help. Secondly, we wanted to showcase what we can do from a technology and analysis perspective. And three, we really wanted to do something. This is a serious situation and we're all dealing with our own emotions on it. And by getting to work and making something really cool, that process was therapeutic for me as well as being informative for the team. We're practicing technologists, and as you listen to this presentation, I encourage you to act on your own great ideas on how we can apply technology for future and similar emergencies. Let's work together. My contact information is included at the end. I welcome anyone reaching out to explore opportunities. This is the agenda today. I want to provide an intro to the use cases. I'll go over the areas of analysis along with our early data exploration activities, and then I'll focus on one aspect of the project, which is research and development on academic papers being collected and moderated by the World Health Organization. After that, I'll explain how Couchbase fits in this technology solution, how Couchbase enabled me to develop a guided navigational experience for users looking for information about coronavirus. I'll show a demo and the technology in action and go over some final thoughts, okay? Sound good? So thinking about the pandemic and the impact on the healthcare ecosystem, there are many consequences of this virus. Distributors, can we meet demand for products? Can we logistically get those products where they're needed the most, such as personal protection equipment or PPE, for example? Our pharmacy is well equipped to deal with surging demand and patient load. What is the anticipated patient load? Can we forecast it accurately? Patients, are payers prepared for the claims load, the call volumes, the support needed for patients? What are the cost benefits of different therapies? What are the prescribed treatments scenarios that are recommended, and at what cost? Manufacturers. Do manufacturers have visibility into various evolving treatments and technologies? How can we streamline R&D efforts along with regulatory issues and paperwork? It is extremely time intensive, and normally it's to get approvals for drugs and therapies. How can we globally collaborate to make this happen efficiently and most importantly, safely? Are manufacturers getting the right raw materials? What about their suppliers and backlog of raw material orders necessary for development? What about the supply of testing and involvement of local communities to help confirm therapy success rates and any after effects of treatment? These are just some of the tough questions that require answers. Our project had 3 initiatives, and all 3 had data source requirements along with data enrichment activities. For my part, I worked on the trending research analysis, and I also played a role in analyzing Twitter sentiments, along with quantitative analysis from COVID tracking and New York Times GitHub data. The quantitative analysis on infections focused on the United States at the county level. During project kickoff, there was one comment that a team member made to the group. And he said, my wife comes home from work at the hospital, and then she reads until 2 a.m. researching and trying to find answers for treatment options and solutions for her patients. That quote really stuck with me. I wanted a helper. I wanted to get all those papers being moderated by the WHO and find answers to help. That statement made me think of the end goal. I began my piece for this project with the end in mind. Usually, successful projects have that defined and shared among the team members. You begin with the end in mind. Once we identified some data sources, we began to explore the data. We used several sources: the COVID tracking project, New York Times GitHub COVID data, census data, airport data, mobility data from Google. And I used the World Health Organization along with 2 other data services to enrich that data. Once we had all of the initial data sets, I set about exploring them and visualizing the data. We focus on the United States, and this is territory and state data. Back in May, what are the top 5 areas for infections? Back then, it was New York, right? Which New York made up a part of that, which was really a springboard, right, for the rest of the country. All 5 of these areas have positive slopes. So the infections are increasing, sometimes at a positive rate, up to the end of May. Now, if you fast forward the end of August, interestingly, look at New York and New Jersey. The slope has drastically decreased. Their infection lines here are going flat, and that's awesome. But at the same time, look at California. That line is increasing, almost at an increasing rate. There's several reasons for all of this, and this type of visualization provides questions and motivations for investigation. These are the bottom 50, right? At the end of May, Maryland, Georgia, and Connecticut were leading the pack, right? And if you fast forward, now Georgia's still there, but look at Illinois and Arizona. Now they're trending higher. Why? When we go even further into detail, analyzing a specific state, you can see here Georgia and the counties, which are large circles distributed around the state. There's counties here surrounding the Atlanta metro area, and there's also a county south of the metro area that has a high rate of infection. Why? For the project's machine learning group, they were focused on trying to predict hotspots at the county level. It turns out that there are 3 variables which are highly correlated to infection rates. One is population density. And as you can imagine, New York has probably one of the largest population densities in the country. These maps are the machine learning model output predictions for hotspots. Additionally, mobility is a good indicator for hotspots. The question here is, how seriously and how feasible is it for our population to just stay home? Google is tracking mobility, and we use that data and can see a high correlation, which makes sense. Another high correlation is airport data and community proximity to airports. How close are people to airports? Finally, before we focus on the WHO data, we collected Twitter data for 26 days. We saw 110,000 unique hashtags in the data set that we looked at. In the real world, there are many, many more. This is simply just a snapshot of activity from Twitter. Twitter gets 500 million tweets per day. It's still a lot of data to look at, and to filter all this data, we calculated the slope of hashtags through time. It reveals upward trending and downward trending hashtags. Some are catching on in popularity, and some have a sustained popularity. That's important, a sustained popularity. There are also negative trending hashtags that are falling out of favor. In the graph, you can see 3 hashtags highlighted with sustained through time upward trending slopes: PPE, lockdown, and hydroxychloroquine. This is important to see what's trending up or down for product demands, or to see what's falling out of favor, or preempt any communication gaps and falsehoods. So that was an exploration of the data on a quantitative and subjective sentiment level. The team did an awesome job, and I wanted to highlight some of those details before we move on and look at the WHO data. I led the R&D analysis from the WHO database, and this is where Couchbase played a big role. I collected data from the WHO, and in the spring, this data was really limited. Today, it's changed and advanced, but back in the spring, it was useful, but it didn't provide any hyperlinks, for example. It didn't have any dates. What it did have, though, was a digital object identifier, a DOI. This ID is useful for enriching and getting more data about the data that I was looking at. I used the DOI to enrich the data from 2 different services and 3 REST calls. Once I did that, I could build out boundaries around that data, such as like a timeline that is displayed here. These are articles and publish dates. You could see that it has a long tail going out into the future, and that's because this is cover date. It's when the article will actually appear in publication. The other interesting facet about this timeline is the amount of research that was released in January. Now thinking about use cases for this data, healthcare professionals. They can collect best practices, see what's working. There's research in this database not only on drugs, but also on things like natural remedies. There's research material that a drug manufacturer could use to see what other researchers are doing and looking at and their results. It could be used as a guide for other research and development. Although we focused on healthcare in this project, the entire process can be applied to many industries. And here's what the data looks like. The top right table lists papers and hyperlinks, dates, affiliations with universities, and cited by statistics. There's several different Java code assets that I use to pull all this data together and put it into Couchbase. Now you could just put a Google interface on these documents and do a simple search, right? But I wanted to do something more, like a guided navigation for people to quickly get at the right information that they want. I wanted to help my colleague's wife find actionable information. Any data point that you click in these dashboards updates the top right list of articles. Then you can click on the hyperlink and read the articles. I created several dashboards around this data. I want to show 3 in the slides, and this is the first one. So this is timeline, and then it has a pie graph for countries, like which countries are publishing data, and it has an affiliation table, and it actually has a table with the articles themselves. I've been doing similar work like this since I was a professor at the University of Denver, trying to bring information into my classrooms that was engaging and relevant for the students. Here's a second dashboard. It's based on keyword and timeline. So I did a word analysis on all of the articles. I extracted keywords, did a word count, and then I manually picked keywords that I thought were useful, like therapy or test or treatment. Right. And finally, I wanted to showcase this slide, which is keyword and cited by. I think cited by is an important variable. It demonstrates that not only are people reading and noticing the research, they're actually using it as part of their research. It's being referenced. At the top left of the image, there's a small dot there that is the top cited by article in the database. It has over 1,000 cited by references. That might be a good article to read. So this is where I'd like to show you Couchbase in action. I have 3 scripts that I'll be running. They're going to work on a small sample data set of WHO research papers. So let me stop sharing my screen and switch over to another screen. Okay. Okay, so here's Couchbase, and it's running locally. I have this bucket named Demo. Now, I downloaded a CSV file from the WHO, and I'm going to insert the contents of that CSV file into the bucket. And my code is dynamically going to create key value pairs based upon the headers of that CSV file. So I have a script here. That I'll run. All right. And we're starting to get some documents in the demo database. And I have 214 entries. So if we look at this data, I'll just query it here. You could see right here, this key value was not in the data set back in the spring, but they've decided to add it. What I'm going to do is use the doi.org web service to enrich the data by getting the actual URLs so that I could use it as a hyperlink. It should be this second script. So I have 3 scripts. The second script is going to make a REST call. It's going to go out and get the URL. I'll just take a count here. So I have 13 right now. This number should be going up. And if I execute this, I could see, okay. So this is the actual URL where this article lives. And I'm going to use that in my dashboards, right, as a user navigational tool, as you would say. Let's see how far it's gone. Still running. It should finish pretty quickly. And then after this script finishes, I'm going to run a third script, which is going to go out to another data service. And I'm going to create 2 JSON documents. So the bucket numbers 214 should increase when I run this, the next script. All right, 214. So it should be done. That's great. It should be done soon. I did notice something wrong with my window, so I might have to cut it off here. All right, let's run the third script. Now this one's going to take a little bit longer. So while it's running, I just want to show this postman. This is the actual service and what it's going to return to me. And all of this is running in Java code. So this is the response I'm going to get from that next web service. It's going to give me more information that I can enrich the data. It's going to give me URLs, author information, and it's going to give me an affiliation, along with cited by statistics. Right? So it should be running, and the numbers in the bucket should be going up, which they are. Right? We started off at 214. It's up at 274. After this finishes, I'm going to run a final nickel statement. And this ties all the data together, okay, and allows me to create those dashboards in Microsoft Power BI. How I'm going to get at that data is another REST call using the Couchbase Nickel REST API. So here's a sample of that running, and I did get a result set. So it's working, the script's working, that's good. Switch over and see where the numbers are at, just out of curiosity. Let's see. Missing. Okay. I just have a limit here of 1. Let's see what the number is really quickly. So it's up to 99 documents right now. The next thing that I did, oh, it's up to 418 documents. Okay, great. The next thing that I just wanted to show here while we're in Couchbase is doing the search, so by keyword. Okay. So I just did a search on herb, Chinese herbs and extracts. So I mentioned previously during the presentation about natural remedies. So here's some articles that have herb in the abstract. So if you're interested in natural remedies. Okay, so now let's switch over to the actual end product, right? This is an article that I published on LinkedIn, and I'll provide the URL address to this article at the end of the presentation. And if you scroll down, there's this hyperlink here. So anybody can use these dashboards. So I encourage you to go out there and click on this hyperlink and check it out. See if it's useful for you. This is what you get, right? I highlighted 3 of the dashboards during the presentation. There's actually 5. I'm going to just quickly run through these. The first one is a timeline, as I mentioned. Interesting to see in January all these documents being released. You can see that China makes up the bulk of those documents, right? And the United States is also there. So when you click on this dashboard, it's going to update the affiliations. Here's a hospital in New York that has released 11 documents and been cited over 100 times. You can click on that hospital and preview their articles. You can also click on a hyperlink, which is going to bring up the article. This one happens to be about diabetes and COVID-19. So that's the first dashboard. The second one are those keywords and word analysis that I was showing previously using full text search in Couchbase. You can click on the keyword, say cure. The timeline gets updated, and then you can click on, say, well, let's look at May, right? Here's an article, the progress of 2019. Right, here's a title, event in China. Here's again, here's a hyperlink. Bring up the article and read. And the third one here is that cited by. So that top performing cited by article, clinical features of patients infected with 2019 novel coronavirus in Wuhan, China, cited by 1,062 times, right? I also added in this dashboard a little title search. I was interested to see natural remedies like herbs. And there's 4 articles here. Not all of them have hyperlinks, but these down here do have hyperlinks. So traditional herbal medicine, right? You can click on this hyperlink just to read out of curiosity about herbal medicine treating COVID-19. Now there are 2 other dashboards that I created out here that I didn't highlight in the slides. One is geography. So by affiliation, I can collect information on the distribution of these research articles. And I could say, look at a country like China. What's interesting about this is that Wuhan, the bigger circles have more articles. Wuhan has 168 articles that they've released publicly. Right? And Wuhan happens to be what some consider the epicenter of the virus, right? When I click on Wuhan, I get all of the articles. Again, I get the hyperlinks. And finally, the last dashboard that I created was by publication. So if you're interested in a specific publication out of a specific country, you could use this dashboard to look at the data. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen and switch over now. Here. Okay, so that was the technology demo, and just a preview of the final final report with the dashboards. Please use it if you're interested. Check it out. Here's some notes on Inspired Intellect, some details about our offering. One of our partners is Couchbase. We have several others. We work in areas like DevOps, big data, dev app development. I work in the enterprise data architecture group, and I work closely with the machine learning and analytics group. Here's a link to my profile on LinkedIn, right? And here's a bit.ly URL for getting at that article with a hyperlink to the dashboard if you're interested in it. My contact information is here. Please reach out to me. If you'd like to learn more or have any questions or comments, reach out to me via my email. Once again, thank you. It was a pleasure being here. And a special thanks to Couchbase for providing this forum. Enjoy the rest of the conference.